What's up, YouTube? I'm back from my mini vacation to drop you guys the latest tech that is crushing ladder on patch 15.2 D. That's right, we're on the D patch already, just on the second patch for the set. Introducing Colossal Udyr, an unkillable unit even at 1 star that can stabilize you through a lot of stage 4. Colossal is a power-up that many people didn't even think was very good. In fact, it was bad to take team slots away from you for some of these units that didn't feel worth it. But Udyr capitalizes on all these stats perfectly, and if you build the right items on him, he's basically unkillable for a large portion of the game. In fact, many people are calling for an E patch to try to fix it, because if you can't beat him, complain about it until Riot nerfs it. If you don't believe me now, after this episode of In Too Deep, you are definitely going to be an Udyr believer. Here's the brief 1, 2, 3 on Colossal Udyr. The first thing is that Udyr actually doesn't want traditional tank items outside of Gargoyle Stormplate. You want Stairs Cage because Stairs Cage has a lot more value on Colossal, the power-up itself. Because Colossal gives you 1000 HP and 20% durability, that 50% HP shield actually is worth way more. It's worth basically double. And then Titans gives you more value off the resistances while also giving you CC immunity at 15 stacks, which is very, very quick. And then Titans also gives you crowd control immunity with a bunch of stats that also scales his healing as well. A lot of synergy with this. So if you end up building things like Bramble, Dragon's Claw, and Spirit Visage, the usual tank items, you're actually not going to have as much mileage as just straight up trying to build Udyr as sort of a half tank, half fighter. The second thing is that Ashe really needs Rageblade and Kraken. Those are the two most important items on Ashe. Item number 3 is really flexible. I think the stats say that Edge of Night is the best item, but you can go a second Kraken, you can go a second Rageblade, you can also go Gunblade, and of course, if you get things like, Flicker Blades is really good as well. So the third item is really flexible, so just make sure you have Rageblade and Kraken. As a result, Cloak is actually kind of a high in demand item because you need this for a Kraken, a Stoneplate, and even an Even Shroud. You do want utility items. That often goes onto Set or Viego. You can have things like Set hold Even Shroud and Sunfire, and you can have Morello and Red Buff on Kale. Kale actually does, remember, a big wave at level 9. So if you get to level 9, she can hold some of that stuff. And then late game, you want to cap with Lee Sin as a duelist. Lee Sin actually is a really good holder of also anti-heal as well, because then he just hits a bunch of units. And then you can also throw in Zyra or even Twisted Fate. Ashe's best power-up is Bullet Hell because she just shoots 30% more projectiles, and she's mainly a projectile character. So I don't know if it's exactly like a 30% damage buff, but it feels close to it, so it's just really good. You can also do things like, for example, if you don't have any Last Whisper or Even Shroud, you can just put Sky Pierce on her temporarily until you get it. I've had success doing that. And then also, we don't have Shadow Clone. I think we need to actually update that, but consider doing Shadow Clone over Kahuna Huna, for example. I think they nerfed Kahuna Huna maybe a little bit too much, so it's not as good on Ashe, so probably to make that update, but I'm glad I caught it right now. The best opener to play this is actually Gnar. You might be tempted to try and put this on duelists like a Kale or a Kaisa, but the reality is Gnar with Mundo as an opener is fantastic because Gnar basically wants the same items as Ashe, which is Rageblade and Kraken. So Gnar plus Juggernaut, and then you hold some of the duelists, and then as you get into things like maybe the 4 duelist and GB2, you can transition, or you can just stay on Gnar all the way until level 8. Speaking of, you do want to go to level 8. You don't want to roll too much on level 7 because, yes, Udyr 3 is your win condition. But right now on ladder, Udyr is so hard to hit because, well, a lot of people want to play Udyr in their compositions. Anytime people are playing other variations like, Kale reroll, they're also taking things like Juggernaut. So Udyr is just a really, really contested unit, and it's really hard to find. But if you do find yourself in a spot, you could try to go for something like Rig Shop and roll for Udyr 3 and Viego 3 and just give Viego a bunch of leftover items. If you do end up getting something like Radiant Refactor, Radiant Rageblade is insane on Ashe. That's her best Radiant item by far. And I'm not trying to upgrade a Radiant item on Udyr, but if I were to do it, it'd probably be Radiant Stoneplate. For this game replay, we are going to be opening on the Grand Finals encounter, which is basically nothing. This means no extra gold, no extra resources, no earlier augments, none of those shenanigans, no wacky carousels, just good old plain straightforward TFT. Maybe a little bit on the boring side if you're looking for the crazy dopamine rush, but we're here to learn. We're not here to gamble. Okay, maybe we're here to gamble just a little bit. We're on Tleyds POV. Tleyds is made to the World Championship, and he's also a newly minted TFT full-time streamer on Twitch. He has a really fun channel. He climbs ladder. He also plays a bunch of silly viewer games, and he's also just good vibes overall. So I recommend Tleyds' Twitch channel. Really good vibes overall, and you know, he's really good time, and he's also really good at the game. So pretty much the complete package of what you want in a TFT streamer, I think. He's going to sell Ziggs. Ziggs is probably the worst 3-cost to hold in the game. Doesn't really connect to anything. Not really good early game carry. You don't even really want him until later if you're playing crew. So yeah, not really that valuable of a user. We, by the way, have a Rage Blade as our opening items. And whenever you're thinking about things like the early game power-ups, he actually used his power snacks early on to Kale. That's because he has Rage Blade already. And he was looking to see if he can get maybe Kale's best power up, which I believe is over 9,000, or some kind of scaling one. And he did find one scaling one in the form of Golden Edge. And it's important to note that Golden Edge, actually, you can see the attacks, it counts on creep rounds, actually. And so it's actually nice to get Golden Edge racking up a little bit. I guess if he was greedier, he could have slammed Rage Blade on the Kale during the creep round, but he wants to see his augment first because you just don't want to do something so committal, because what happens if you end up getting something like this perfect form Zac, for example? If you slam Rage Blade, you don't really want that Rage Blade on the Zac unless, I mean, I guess technically the perfect form Zac does scale with the Rage Blade, but it's not that good. Speaking of, by the way, we are using a new replay system to do some VOD reviews. So I'm just clicking through to show you what it can do, which is really nice. Thanks to Meta TFT and the replay tool. So we can go and check, you know, boards and analyze things and slow things down. So let's go ahead and break down the augments here. We do already have a Zac too. So perfect form Zac is something that you could justify doing. I do think perfect form is pretty powerful hero augment if you have the items to slam for it. My general rule for hero augments is, because your augment is so much concentrated power into one unit, you really want to make sure you have items either immediately to slam or in the near future. And right now we don't have anything to slam for Zac. We have Rage Blade and a belt, or you know, we can make Morello, for example. But Zac really wants things like Jewel Gauntlet, Archangels, Bloodthirster, like things like that. And even if we get the perfect item on Carousel, which, by the way, we probably won't get first pick since we have a Zac too, and perfect form is going to make us win some fights. So let's say we even do get the perfect component. We're probably not going to be able to finish all of our items by the end of stage 2 anyways. And so analytically, from this point of view, we could get completely item screwed. It's just pretty significant risk. The upside is, I mean, we have 3 Zacs. We're pretty far ahead of the curve. This could be one of those instances where it's actually really good to play perfect form. So it's kind of a trade-off that you'd have to make. I think Tleyds in general is like risk averse, so I don't really anticipate him to pick this, but it is something that he's probably open to. Caretaker's Ally is a augment that you can pick when you have no direction. Right now we have a Zac 2, we have a Rage Blade, we have KO. We do have direction. We don't have to pick this Caretaker's Ally. This is particularly good when your items aren't very good and you don't have like any pairs at all. So I'd probably skip this Caretaker's Ally. And then Over Encumbered is okay. I think that it's a lot worse now that I got nerfed from 3 down to 2 components. But it's better when you also have 2 stars, because the power of Over Encumbered is that you get items, but you lose your bench slots. So if you're holding pairs, you can't hold on to them. But since we have a Zac 2, we can just like level, sell things. I think that's perfectly fine. So I'd probably consider like rolling 2 or even all 3 of these, but let's see what Tleyds does. So Tleyds chooses to hold perfect form and roll 2 and 3, and he gets offered crafting, which I think is a little bit situational. This is a lot better when you open up more components, you know, component anvils, for example, or this, because then you get, you know, you get a decent amount of gold off the reroll value. But right now, I think this is just not the spot to take it. And then Pocket Recombobulator is really interesting because, for one, you can just take this Pocket Recombob and use it once or twice. Sometimes you can just stop on the 2 cost and save it, and you can just also rip it twice for a 3 cost. It's just a lot of tempo, because sometimes those 3 costs can also just help you win streak. Sometimes they're a little bit troll. Sometimes you get the Ziggs, for example. But even then, it's not like a Ziggs 2 is bad early game. So it gives you a lot of tempo and sort of direction that you can play around as well. So I can see him pick perfect form or Pocket Recombob here. He chooses to go for the Pocket Recombob and immediately rips it and gets a Viego 2 levels for the Juggernaut. Very nicely done. Okay, so this Viego gives us the Duelist start, and now we kind of see why he plays Duelist, because, you know, obviously we made this video about Duelists and why they're strong. So this is definitely like a good spot to play it by all means. So it's definitely high roll in that regard, but hey, he could have also high rolled things like the Udyr, for example, or maybe something else that could have enabled him to also gets into this duelist line. He only slammed Rod, by the way, against Logosong, and that might be confusing. Like, you know, he's playing duelist. Why not just slam the Rage Blade? But again, he's a top player. He really values that open consistency and flexibility, right? He doesn't want to necessarily just commit to the Rage Blade because Viego's a magic fighter, and he really wants to try to build towards like a potential Viego carry. So if you got like Viego's best power up, which I think is like stretchy arms or some of these other like, you know, power fighter ones. Unfortunately, he didn't really get any of these power ups. He got Midas Touch, Weights, and Golden Edge, 2 econ ones and 1 scaling one. But I would assume that in this case, none of them are particularly really good. The only one that actually does anything right now, combat-wise, is Midas Touch because it actually executes enemies below 10 health. But everything else, like Golden Edge doesn't give power, and Weights actually makes you worse because you move and attack slower for until you drop all your weights. Fun reference, but not very good for a while. And he won his first fight, so he wants to keep that streak going. So I'm curious what he's going to pick here. It seems like he's actually waiting. Sort of a fun little tip here is that you can actually wait to see who you are going up against before you commit to the power-up, because the power-up gives you like 40 seconds to choose, but the round's starting, so you don't have to actually choose it. He ends up committing to Golden Edge, and one little neat thing about Golden Edge is that he actually has it carried over from the previous rounds. Remember, he got like, you know, the Golden Edge from the Kale during the creep rounds. That actually stayed from the previous Golden Edge holder. So he actually like relayed that over, and now he might be able to farm 2 gold with this. I think the way he's viewing it is if he can keep Golden Edge with Viego and Win Streak, he might be able to get 2, maybe even 5 gold because it goes from 2 to 5. And that might be really valuable. And not to mention that he also hit Dr. Mundo 2 and Neferi 2. So this is a pretty high roll opener that he can convert into a strong duelist setup. And if you're looking around right now, there are some strong players, right? They have, you know, 2-star Syndra, for example. And these are some of the other high tempo win streak players. But he really shouldn't be losing many fights on stage 2. And he might be able to farm, you know, Golden Edge with the duelist stacks twice, maybe even 3 times. Okay, he's going to win this fight and also make it 10 gold. So really, really good start for him. On Carousel, he is last pick, and he is going to go for the vest. On 2-5, he levels to 5 to play the Gnar. Activating Luchador for Dr. Mundo is really powerful. It's one of the main reasons why Mundo is so powerful is that there's 20% heal and cleanse and stun and aggro drop. It just does a lot to keep Mundo alive. It's a big reason why Mundo is so problematic to deal with right now. And we get the first Golden Edge activation, so we get 2 gold, and we're still on a 4 streak, so everything's looking really good so far. At 2-6, he's looking to try and improve his shop and make 20 gold, but looks like he can't really do much, so he's going to go ahead and scout the other player. He scouts the Shadow Clone off of the Syndra, which is actually very, very powerful, considering that he has Spark, so he might have to reposition, but I think this is the best possible angle they can get for to continue the win streak, so nothing too crazy. And he's queued up against a player who looks like he's playing the same thing, by the way. This person has Kaisa 2 and is probably thinking about playing a little bit of, you know, Kaisa, Juggernaut, Duelist. So his Duelist might be a little bit contested, either through light contesting by taking some of the adjacent units like Kaisa and Udyr, or directly contesting, like trying to go for Ashe. I also have my team planner from my live client, so sorry about that. He's not team planning Garen. All right, so we're on a 5 streak, and remember, Golden Edge actually counts for the creep round, so one optimization that maybe he's not going to go for is he actually can split up his army. He can actually have, you know, 2 units here and, you know, Viego here and 1 unit here, and if he did that, then he would actually inefficiently spread his damage, which actually would allow his Viego to get more attacks in. Just like a small thing, but not that big of a deal. He got some attacks in. It's not that huge of a deal. All right, we get a Tyr cloak and a sword, and it looks like we're gonna reforge the Tyr immediately because Tyr is not particularly really good item in duelists. And he's gonna make a Stairs Gauge and Titans. So these are really good items for Udyr, as we talked about. And I actually really like that he went for the Udyr items first instead of the Ashe. I think a lot of people would try and go for a Kraken here, but the Kraken is not that good of an item on magic fighters. Like it's an item that'd be good for Gangplank because he's an attack fighter and he scales off the physical damage for his ability, but Viego scales off the magic damage. He does get a little bit of scaling off his physical from his passive now that I'm seeing it, but it's still not that efficient. And he knows that these are just stronger items immediately to increase his chance of winning. So I think that's really smart. The trade-off is that you don't know if you're going to get another bow. So it's one of those things where maybe he's going to struggle to get another bow later. But that's a bridge that he'll cross when he gets there. For now, I think this is his best board immediately. And again, it increases his chances that he's going to keep his win streak while potentially activating Golden Edge. I think this is a really smart series of slams. All right, take a look at his 3-2 augments. Replication, whenever you see it, you have to think about multiple outs that you can get. I think if you ever take replication, you think, I need this one specific item. You're setting yourself up to fail and low roll. I think you need to think, okay, I want either, swords or gloves or bows, and any of them could be useful. In this case, I think that the component that he would want is either bow or maybe a cloak. Actually, he already has a cloak here. The thing about this composition is that you're making Kraken, Stoneplate, and often an Even Shroud, so 3 cloaks is okay. But he already has 1 cloak, so I don't even know if you want that. Either way, you have to be thinking about that, and I can't think of too many components that he's really happy about, so it is something that's a little bit of a heavy risk if you choose to go for it. Heavy as a crown is for very specific units that either can't die easily. It's very good on Mundo, for example, but it's not a Mundo situation because he doesn't have any items for Mundo. But part of the reason why Heavy of the Crown is so good for Mundo is the Luchador. The Luchador cleanses and heals, right? And jumps away. So he actually resets his aggro and heals the full. So that interaction is very powerful with Heavy as the Crown. Blood Rage is something that's okay. I'm personally not that big of a fan of it because I feel like the damage amp based on the missing health fluctuates a little bit too much. It's not that consistent. If it could always get to something like the 35 damage amp consistently, that'd be good. But I don't really like it because I just think it's just too volatile, I think. So I'm not really a big fan of any of these. I'm okay with rolling all of them. We're at 10 seconds left, and he's kind of taken 20 seconds to think about this. And he rolled options 1 and 2 while holding option 3 for Blood Rage. So Blood Rage is like his default in case he needs to fall back upon. Say Spellweaver is okay. It's a lot better for melee champion, so it's good for the Udyr. It's not as good for the Ashe in Duelists. But he could also be still thinking about, like, does he want to play around Viego? And say the Spellweaver is good now for Viego as well as later on Udyr. But I guess if that's the case, then you might as well just take Blood Rage. So I'm curious what he's going to try to do here. So he chooses to go for Sated Spellweaver instead, which I think is entirely reasonable. I think it's just overall a little bit better than playing around Blood Rage, which I think, again, it's just very hit or miss sometimes. His Golden Edge is actually about to activate again, which is really huge. And if he can get like that 3 gold and keep his win streak, he'll be in an amazing spot. Let's take a second to briefly scout around other people and what they're playing. So we have the Bastion Prodigy with Enzo. Enzo's a top French player. We have what looks like to be a Kaisa Commit from Value. He is going to be playing around Udyr 2. Oh my goodness, he has Udyr 2 already, which is going to make it unlikely to hit that Udyr 3 for Tleyds. We have a double Shojin opener here from a Sologasong into what looks like to be Sorcerers or some kind of Star Guardian, but it looks like it's AP leaning. He could try to transition towards AD, maybe Soul Fighter, but it's still very likely that he's going to stay on Star Guardians or Sorcerers. Then we have HSI with a Rageblade and an Infinity Edge with a Titans. Actually, this looks like another Ashe setup. This actually looks like he wants to go for Kraken off Carousel, and he's going to want to go for Ashe. McLock is playing, let's see, Leighton Forge, Spirit Link, Shojin, Jewel Gauntlet. That is almost certainly a Sorcerer Star Guardian lean, because those are just like the trees I want to play it. Then we have Jace with Sterix Gauge and Bloodthirster with Forward Thinking AFK. So we're going to see K-Jump go for the Battle Academia Jace Caitlyn reroll. Try to go for 3-star Jace, 3-star Caitlyn, and try to overwhelm through a bunch of backline damage. And then Jason Java is going for Smolder. We saw this earlier. Smolder with Efficient, one of his best power-ups. Play any kind of front line like Protector or Heavyweights. Yep, that's going to be good to go. Okay, so we know that there's going to be one person directly contesting us and another person that is going to be holding some of our units. So with that in mind, how are we going to adapt? We have an open cloak on Carousel, and Bo is not being taken yet. And we might be able to get this Kraken off the Carousel, which is huge because we slammed that Titans for the immediate tempo, thinking that it's possible that we might not get a bow for a long time, but now we have Rageblade Kraken, and we have the best 2 items on Ashe, period, that will guarantee us to have a lot of tempo when we hit Ashe. So we level here, and we're going to be playing around 4 duelists, which is very smart. And we are actually going to be keeping Golden Edge. This is actually really interesting to see how much his greed continues to extend. I think in his mind, he's already win streaking so much, and he's so far ahead that even if he loses his streak, this Golden Edge is almost like insurance, because being on a streak is really good. It gives you 3 gold for, you know, being on the streak. But if he's able to activate Golden Edge, that's kind of like winning and keeping your streak going. So it's a really nice thing. Plus, he might even have the benefit of doing both, which, I mean, based off how it's going with K-Jump right now, who's purposely loose streaking with forward thinking, it looks like we're actually going to be able to get there. Amazing. This Viego spot is amazing, and everything is looking really good so far. Now we get our second power-up, and I'm curious who's going to put it on. He did slam the item onto the Kai'Sa in the back line. He could put it on his Kai'Sa. In general, as a rule of thumb, putting your power-ups on your item holders is good, but he also has a Mundo too, so he could also just put it on the Mundo and just say, hey, I just want some kind of tank to be good enough to stall out for Viego, because, you know, Viego is sort of the tank and the carry right now, but it'd be nice if he wasn't put under so much pressure to have to actually tank for the team. And now our last fight for stage 3, and it looks like we're going up against a Nar1. This is one of the people that looks like they're contesting us because they have the Titan Slam, they have Rageblade Kraken. A lot of signs that point that we're going to be contested by this player. But that person almost feels like their spot is not very good because they don't have a lot of tempo going. So I think HSI's spot to play Ashe is significantly worse. We're up in gold by a lot, and we're up in HP. Like, everything is looking really, really good. I would say that this opener actually for Gnar is the default way you want to play it. I think the view that we have of Tleyds is that he has a really high roll opener with the Pocket Recon Bob. And I actually think this, if you have a Gnar 2 opener and you get something really good like Shadow Clone or, you know, like maybe the Golden Edge Midas Touch type of stuff with Gnar as well, that's also a really good opener to play into Ashe as well, because Gnar uses very similar items to Ashe. Okay, we're going to do our roll down here, and we pass by a Twisted Fate, but that's totally fine because we're not actually going to be playing this Twisted Fate, but it's just nice to have it in our back pocket in case. And we're looking to see if we can find Ashe. We roll with Colossal. Colossal forces us to take out another unit, so it's good there. Our Golden Edge is at 21 at 85. He's going to start moving items immediately, and he gets his Ashe in just at the nick of time. Pretty clean, all things considering, and he rolls for the power-up here and chooses Desperado. I think there's a case for him to go for Sky Piercer because he has no Sunder, but I think this is also okay as well. The Desperado has pretty good synergy with the Kraken because the Kraken racks up our basic attack damage a lot. So it ends up having like a nice little way for us to scale as the fight goes on. And look at that. We're able to continue our win streak very cleanly. 11 streak by finding that 1 copy of Ashe. And this board is really stable just on 1-star Udyr, 1-star Ashe for stage 4. It sounds like BS because it is. But that's just kind of the nature of why this composition is considered to be very, very strong, is because this board is actually really stable for stage 4, even though it's just 1 Udyr and 1 Ashe at the moment. Let's take a look at his augments here. We have Scavenger, Big Grab Bag, and Overheal. Scavenger is just a lot more awkward this set because it's just hard to kill tanks. And with power-ups, making those tanks hard to kill, it's hard to get value off of it. So there's definitely some friction around getting Scavenger value consistently. I personally just don't like it this set right now. Big Grab Bag is worth considering only because we still need to finish 3-item Ashe, and we also really want to work on some utility. We have no anti-heal. We have no Sundering, for example. So this could get us there. We also have a couple of Reforgers to help fix some of these components as well if we need to. So I think it's a good one to default to. Overheal has inherent synergy with Duelists because every third attack just deals more damage and heals, and Duelists just attack a lot. And it's also particularly good when a lot of your attacks are based off your abilities. Like, you know, Ashe, for example, when she shoots her Gates of Avarosa, those count as attacks. So I don't know if it's like... Okay, so the thing that I have to clarify that I'm not super familiar with, and again, I apologize, these are really niche interactions, but I don't know if the next 8 attacks are actually counting as 2 activations of Overheal. That's the part where I'm not familiar with. But in previous sets, for example, That was something that triggered with like Urgot in the previous set. So there are interactions in the past that would make Overheal really strong. So that part I have to kind of confirm with, because there's some like people who like Duck would know. He would actually dig in really deep to find that kind of stuff. But for now, I would say that it's definitely like a reliable combat augment that you could probably think about right now. But I'm curious if he wants to just go for items right now. Okay, he chooses to roll 1 and 3, and he's leaning towards item grab bag. And I think that is just a safe call. I think Tesla Coil is also something worth considering, but that's for another day. I think Tesla Coil is a lot better when you have AP Shred, and he doesn't have that right now. Rolls a 0, and he finds Set, and that allows him to go for a Stone Plate immediately. You can also reforge a tier and go for anti-heal or Sunder. If he gets, you know, a cloak or a vest, you can go ahead and slam that as well. He's going up against the Sorcerer Karma player right now, and they're on Karma 1, Jarvan 1, and I think that his board is just better because the Sorcerer player can't actually kill the Udyr fast enough. And one way you can actually win this matchup as a Sorcerer player is to burst the backline with Gwen. And until that player gets that, until McLock gets that, Tleyds is just going to be stronger than him. Taking a look at some other players in the lobby, the forward-thinking player actually cashed out and rolled down, hit Jace 3, but they are just stuck on, you know, 7 Caitlyn's. This is probably just going to be an 8 for him. I think he's, like, even if he does hit everything, he's at 1 life, and surely he doesn't win every single fight for the rest of the game. Like, you know, maybe the Smolder player spikes too hard, so I actually really worried about him. The Smolder player hit, which is scary, and he has also Keepers, has good synergy with Protectors, and also has Cassante too, so that's good. That's the Sork player that we just checked on. The Kaisa player is also going for Rammus 3. This is sort of a comp that actually I want to feature as well. It's like the Rammus-Kaisa reroll duo, but this is not fully online yet because we're still on Kaisa 2 and Rammus 2. And then checking in on the other duelist player, looks like they do have Ashe 2 and Udyr 2. So they have like the better version of what we're playing. In fact, they actually have Bullet Hell Ashe, which is one of, if not the best power-ups for Ashe. So I think this is going to be tough for Tleyds. I mean, HSI definitely has stabilized and is looking like he is going to be like ahead of us in terms of the Ashe count right now. And looks like we went up against someone who did end up high rolling, getting something like the Yuumi 2. So it looks like our streak is over and we're broke and we don't have Ashe 2. I think we're still on... oh, no, we did hit the Udyr 2. So at least our front line is squared away. But yeah, going to Carousel, it is going to be a little bit tough to find that Ashe 2. Fast forwarding, we can just probably take utility here. So we have an open belt. I'm more than happy to take a rod or a sword here. Okay. The sword is because Edge of Night, I think, is the best third item on Ashe. Edge of Night just allows Ashe to scale further and keep her safe from some of the burst in the backline. So I think Edge of Night is really, really good. If you can't get Edge of Night, I think the sword item you're going to go for is a Hextech Gunblade, so you can heal the Udyr. In general, when you play these like giant, thick, colossal units, Gunblade is really good because you're like healing like 2 units for the value of 1 item. So Gunblade can be really, really powerful. If you guys played the Set 8 Monsters attack, this was actually the build that we played back with Samira, who's a 4 cost that would heal the mech. The mech would be 3 units combined into 1, and that Gunblade per healing point done for the front line was really efficient. It's the same concept. Whenever you're playing these kind of colossal things, you're just getting a lot more value for all the HP healed. Okay, this Jace 3 and Caitlyn is just so difficult to deal with, just already spraying backline. The difficulty of Jace is that he shoots the 3 nearest enemies, and a lot of times, Jace is just going to be on the same side and get to your Ashe this way. So this can be a tough matchup. And from here, I think we can just kind of play on 2x because most of the game is pretty much just sitting here and waiting for Ashe 2. But one thing I do like is that he's not just rolling his gold down every single turn, hoping that he just hits Ashe 2. I think this is actually a really good sign of patience because he has a lot of HP, and the longer he waits, the more gold reserves that he builds to go for the Ashe roll down. And so he's actually more likely to hit Ashe the longer he waits because he's able to at least make that interest threshold. Although I'm actually starting to see a problem here. Do you guys see what I see? I see 2 more Ashes on the bench. Oh my God, he's giving the thumbs up as well because HSI won the mirror and he's holding 5 Ashes to stop Tleyds from hitting Ashe as well. That is brutal. So how are you going to pull yourself out? We high rolled early. Looks like we got Shadow Clone or Bullet Hell. Looks like he's going to favor Bullet Hell over Shadow Clone, by the way. That's a interesting observation. I think some people would pick Shadow Close the best, but Bullet Hell I think is just really, really good. Okay, so things were looking really good, and now all of a sudden we're getting pulled back in the midfield. I think it's pretty safe to say that we are almost guaranteed top 4, but can we do better than that? Okay, we're going to open up the Anvil, and I believe this should be Edge of Night. We also could reforge. We have 4 reforgers, so we could try to aim for something very specific. Let's say, for example, we reforged into, like, you know, anti-heal components. We could just, like, react off of that. But it looks like he's going to go for double Kraken instead. Okay, double Kraken is also okay because you have so much attack speed. And I think he's trying to go off of, like, bullet hell synergy here. Just fire projectiles that hit really, really hard. And I think part of it that he's thinking about was also, if he took the vest for Edge of Night, what would he be left over? Double Kraken is perfectly good on Ashe. It's one of the good ones for item number 3. And this Deathblade can go on to Lee Sin later. And he's going up against Smolder, and just look at how tanky this Udyr is. Like, this Udyr is just tanking forever. 20,000 damage by Ashe, but look at Udyr 2 blocking 18,000 damage and still staying alive by the end of the fight. It is an obscene amount of healing coming out of this thing. But you see how stable he is just on 1-star Ashe? He doesn't have to roll for Ashe 2, and that is really good restraint. And now, even though HSI was doing better, he had to sell the ashes because he recognized he needs to sell those ashes for econ. He can't just hold them and try to go to level 9. Going up against Sologasong Star Guardian board, and it looks like it's going to be kind of close. But man, we're beating kind of a fully decked Star Guardian board as well. And now our HP gap almost certainly guarantees that we're top 4. And we're going to be able to push to level 9. I think this Seiya Spellweaver, by the way, is putting in pretty decent work. It looks like it's keeping Udyr alive a pretty significant amount and helping him tank a ton, by the way. All right, taking a look at this next fight and just fast forwarding through. He's going up against the Jace 3, Caitlyn 3 player. And the Caitlyn and Jace unfortunately snipes his back line, so he's going to lose this fight. But he knows that he's going to lose this fight anyways because he's basically just trying to greed to get to level 9. It's totally fine to lose these fights while sacking your HP, knowing that that's going to be the case. And by the way, the Ashe player that was contesting him actually just kept losing. HSI lost to the Battle Academia Prodigy player. He lost to the Protector Smolder player, right? The Monster Trainer Protector. And then he lost to the Kaisa player. So in general, that he just basically had to outlive the guy that was contesting him. And now ashes are back in the pool while he's getting ready to go to level 9. All right, looks like Tleyds has grabbed the red buff, by the way, which is very nice because we were lacking anti-heal. One thing about this composition that's really interesting that I've come to find out is that, yes, anti-heal and sundering are important, but it's not something that you can't live without and pick up later in the game. I've seen a lot of times myself and other players just delay getting things like the red buff, the Morello, the Even Shroud, and it ended up being okay because this Udyr is able to tank for a long time, and you had that scaling inevitability. All right, we find that Lee Sin. We're going to take out the Kaisa and put these items on Twisted Fate. Twisted Fate is a really good applier of red buff because every time he auto attacks, his attacks just bounce between enemies. So it's kind of like doing a small AoE, and all of those get affected by red buff. So Twisted Fate's a really good holder of Last Whisper and Morello and red buff, those kinds of items. This is a matchup between the two head-to-head Titans. And I think this will be a really big indicator of who is going to be ahead and likely to win the game right now. And look at this, Yuumi not able to actually get enough mana and cast. So that is going to be a win for Tleyds. And it looks like he is in a really, really good spot to try and play for first. And he is already top 4 off of the Caitlyn Jace end up losing to the Smolder player. That Smolder player ended up clutching a really, really solid top 4 here. He ended up skipping Ashe and not like looking for Ashe 3. I wonder if he is going to be looking to go to level 10. It's one of those things where you're here at level 9 and you have 2 choices. At level 9, you can either roll down to try to see if you can get Lee Sin 2 and Twisted Fate 2, which is actually not super likely on such a small amount of gold. Or you could try to just gather a bunch of gold and take a look at level 10 and try to see if you can improve your power. But the thing is, at level 10, there's not many like good units to play. A lot of times your level 10 is like a Zyra or maybe, you know, a random Braum or something like that. So a lot of times you're just better off rolling at 9 for this composition. You can see that he's constantly swapping his Ashe to be on the opposite side of the carry because Ashe wants to ramp up, and so she doesn't want direct confrontation. She wants to be her strongest at the end of the fight. So by staying away from the enemy carry, he guarantees that the Smolder will target her last. And that ends up being the reason he's able to win this fight. Good positioning by Tleyds. All right, we're approaching the end of this game. Let's take a look at these items. Quakes over, I guess, is perfectly fine. Attack speed is pretty good on TF. He's going to go ahead and send it and roll it down. Looking for TF2. He finds it. Go ahead and 2x this. Reforges and ends up getting a stairs gate, which I think is perfectly fine. Against the Kaisa board, he ends up losing. So it's going to be kind of a nail biter to figure out if he's able to actually beat this Kaisa board. Okay, he matches up against the Prodigy Yuumi board, and looks like he gets the fight win versus the Ghost pretty easy, straightforward. Meanwhile, looks like the Kaisa player is streaking, and I think it shifts all the way from... I thought that the BA Prodigy player was going to be the player to beat, but it looks like this Kaisa player instead is going to be the one to beat. And Tleyds, by the way, been rolling at 9. He actually hasn't been able to even collect any copies of Udyr, really, so Udyr 3 is out of the question. The Yuumi player is at level 10. We're going to hop on board in the middle of the fight here. And by the way, he did roll for Yuumi, and this player is holding 5 Yuumis. So Tleyds is trying to play Denial and stop the win condition from the Yuumi 3. And all of a sudden, looks like we're the 3rd strongest player in this lobby. Okay, Tleyds is going to grab the Edge of Night on the Carousel for the Twist of Fate. He finds a second Yuumi, so Enzo can no longer hit Yuumi 3. That is impossible. Okay, we're against the Kaisa player again, and things look a little bit dicey here. The Akali has gotten to our back line. You do have to try to dodge Akali players as Ashe. That is one really tricky thing about this matchup. And yeah, we just got whittled down too much, and now we're down to our last life here. And that's the thing about this composition. I do think it falls off late game against some of the really high power cap stuff. The win rate of this composition is not that high, but it farms top 2 and top 3 really consistently, and you can sometimes even go for the win if you hit things like the Udyr 3, but I feel like without Udyr 3 and hitting that max cap, you're just going to be stuck playing for second. Okay, so the question is, I asked him if he was going to go to level 10 here, and it looks like he is 56, so if he gets a 10, what is he going to even play? Looks like he is rolling. Is he rolling to deny still? Looks like he might be rolling to deny Cassante. He actually made an Ashe 2. Remember, he hasn't actually been collecting Ashes throughout the entire time, so he's actually chasing Ashe 3. He has 7 Ashes. Okay, hold on. Shh, everyone be cool. Everyone be cool. I don't know. I'm talking as if they can hear me in real time, but okay, rolling down one more time. See if you can maybe scam an Ashe 3 out of nowhere. Oh god. Looks like his opponents are pinging him as well. Oh, he hit it. Oh my god, he hit. He actually got Ashe 3 out of freaking nowhere. He had 3 copies of Ashes. He sold his Twist of Fate to even roll as well. He had TF2 and he rolled for the Ashe 3. And he puts the Edge of Night onto the Ashe 3 as well. And that is lights out. I mean, I think Enzo got kind of close to Cassante. He got 7 Cassantes. But, I mean, I don't think you're going to be able to keep up with Ashe 3's DPS. The damage per arrow, 5x's. So, complete blowout here. And I think Tleyds scams a top placement. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure he was going to get 3rd this game. Like a very comfortable 3rd, but I think it's going to be a 3rd nonetheless. All right, see it. I mean, I don't think the Kaisa player is going to come close. What a roll down here to actually close it out. Super ballsy play. I thought he was going to go to level 9 or level 10 rather and try to play just like another 2-star 5 cost or just, mildly improve his board. But he tried to roll to deny his opponent and in the process also pick up his own win condition, and that's exactly what happened. And I think that is I was going to call it early, a 1st place, but I think this is probably going to be a last fight. We can actually just fast forward this and just watch it in the game here. All right, Greg, let's see it. Oh wait. His opponent hit Cassante 3 as well. Wait, maybe I wrote it off too early. Cassante 3? Cassante 3 is reviving, and now he's dead. Okay. That was a really disappointing Cassante 3, but hey, that was actually a really exciting finish, and I'm glad I saw that. So I think I can decisively say Ash 3 greater than Cassante 3. So as you can see, that composition is really stable, just even on Udyr 2 and Ash 1, and that's the real core crux of it. The juice is whether or not you can get to that board state and find a way to get to 6 duelist Ash with that Udyr. And I hope some of the step-by-step walkthrough process also help you understand some of the mindsets that these pros are playing with, because there's a lot to unpack in each game of TFT at the highest level, and I hope walking through those decisions are really helpful. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.